Hello people, welcome back to the channel. Now this is not a review or a reaction video. The time for those is long gone on this series. I thought I'll try something different and just share what I learned after watching Bad Boy Billionaires. If you do reach the end of this video, you will see a special request to help the channel. So hopefully you will reach the end and see that request and respond to it. Now, when I saw the trailer for Bad Boy Billionaires, I was quite excited because I haven't seen anything like this in the Indian context especially.
I think we have a winner on our hands.
These are pretty big names and the trailer seemed to strike right at them. So I was quite disappointed when I heard that Ramalinga Raju has gone to court and got a stay on this one. And as it usually happens, I thought this will drag on for years and years and I will never get to see this series. Now, Netflix, I think, have been really clever. They basically just cut that episode. That's what was dragged to the court, so they just got rid of it. So 3 episodes in this case is definitely better than 0. Now, the very first one was about Vijay Mallya, the most flamboyant of the 3. It was very interesting how they started it, because they started it with a big bang, like straight away with the assertion that he was a fraud, he was a criminal, and that he should get punishment for it.
He needs to pay for what he did.
I was a little bit taken aback by that. Generally, you would expect kind of a documentary that this is, to start on a knife edge, and it'll give you facts and make the viewers think for themselves. But this series was not about posing questions to the viewers and allowing them to make up their own minds. And I think this was quite important in setting up the tone for the whole series. These are, after all convicted criminals. There is no balancing act to be performed over here. Facts for all of these people are pretty well known. So the series basically sets up as a chronology of events, what happened, how did it start, and where it is today.
I bet he goes to bed every night saying, why didn't I pay the damn money?
Right from the start, right up to the point where it all went belly up for them. In the episode about Vijay Mallya, I was quite surprised to find out about his racing past. I didn't know about that at all. I've never read about that anywhere. So his ownership of Force India, it does make kind of sense. It wasn't a vanity purchase after all. Seeing Sid Mallya, the one-time most eligible bachelor, someone who dated Deepika Padukone, now reduced to defending his absconding father. In other circumstances, I would have felt pity for him. But while watching him, I didn't really feel anything of that sort. This is what I would expect from him, and this was exactly what was on the screen. So no surprises, but it didn't really move me. It didn't really change my opinion about him or Vijay Mallya. However, of the 3 that are covered in this one, I think Mallya is the lesser of the devils. As far as I know, and you can correct me if you know otherwise, he had offered to settle his debts, and it appears that he is solvent enough to do that. He has enough wealth stashed abroad, or probably even in India, to be able to do that. He just wants to do that from the comfort of his London home, rather than face the courts back in India. One thing that Sid Mallya said, one of his statements, I think that was absolutely true.
They need a scapegoat. They need a political pawn. They need a man to make an example.
Mallya is the one who the establishment have set out to make an example of, but in a way that's what you would expect for projecting yourself as this larger than life, the king of good times kind of image. You do a fraud of this scale, what else would you expect?
If that hadn't gone wrong, Vijay would have been king till today. Everybody would have been bowing down and touching his feet, even now.
In the Nirav Modi episode, the very first thing that struck me was this sudden accent switching that he had between interviews that he did in India and abroad. It was very obvious and also a little bit cringy. I think a lot of people have that habit of trying to put on an accent, and it is very obvious when it is a fake one. Now, despite knowing about it beforehand, watching the diamond merchants of Surat in such humble surroundings, that was a little bit unbelievable. I mean, there is a lot of wealth floating around over there and they were just there sitting on the ground. Another thing that surprised me was watching Mehul Choksi in the same episode and Nirav Modi's links with him. So when Nirav Modi said that he learned everything from Mehul Choksi, he probably didn't mean just about the diamonds. He maybe learnt a thing or two about perpetrating a fraud like this. It was a little bit disheartening hearing the worker still singing his praises and saying that he has done a lot for the poor. This is symptomatic of the dysfunctional my-bop kind of relationship that exists between employers and employees. I don't think that needs to be there. I think generally it is an exchange of skills for remuneration, and that's all it should be. I don't think the workers should be feeling beholden to a person who is essentially making them work and then paying them for it. It struck a very disheartening note, especially because I know this kind of relationship exists in vast swathes of India. The jewelry though was absolutely exquisite. It was so beautiful. There can be no arguments about it. Nirav Modi came across as someone who invested in furthering the jewelry making, but he was also a little bit fidgety and uncomfortable on camera, which was quite interesting because he essentially projected himself as the brand, like his name was there on top of these stores. Punjab National Bank came across as criminally complicit in this whole fraud. The South Mumbai office of PNB, I don't know what was going on over there. Now both Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya came across as business people who had the right idea about the product, the brand, and they appeared to be brilliant at marketing and making the right noises.
He really had this vision for like a multinational jewelry brand, something like a Tiffany's.
But both of them also had business models which were fundamentally flawed. Both were obsessed about being globally recognized and appreciated. Mallya with his Formula One team and Nirav Modi with these stores around the global hotspots. There's something curious that came across about the interviews. The people who were essentially telling us what was going on and what their relationship was like with these fraudsters. Most of them genuinely got on board with these bandwagons. They believed in the vision that was projected to them. No doubt it was compelling. It must have been exciting to be part of something that was aimed at world domination. Nirav Modi's ad photographer summed it up perfectly when he said that he was still proud of the work that he had done.
It seemed like this beautiful aesthetic fantasy.
And to an extent, I agree with him. I think, especially in Nirav Modi's case, the products and the advertisements and the whole marketing that was created around it, that was still good work. I don't think we can take away from that. It's just sad that underpinning it was such a huge fraud. However, if the financial institutions had done their jobs properly, basics like getting the right kind and the right level of collateral, then the frauds wouldn't have reached the scale that they did. Not just the banks in India, especially in Nirav Modi's case, but the global financial structure and the institutions that allow tax havens, that prop up shell companies, that allow tainted money to move with ease, that allow corruption at such a grand scale. I think it was probably a newspaperman or some columnist who basically summed it up, saying that we talk a lot about India and places like India being corrupt, but underpinning all of that, enabling all of that, are institutions set around in Switzerland, in UK, in tax havens across the world. Without that structure and without these institutions and these countries enabling them, corruption at this scale would not be possible. In Modi's case, the retirement of one relatively obscure low-level official and someone else following the procedure that anyone should have been following, that was all it took to uncover the fraud. That's how easy it was for him to manipulate the system and take out billions worth of free money. Your money, our money. It's infuriating. I mean, what were the PNB auditors doing? Before I rant anymore, let's move on to Subroto Roy. He was a different beast altogether, completely different in class to both Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya. And I actually found him to be the most abhorrent. He didn't come across as a businessman to me. To me, he was more of a pompous, self-aggrandizing prima donna. The investigative journalist who was being interviewed in this episode, he hit the nail on the head. He said Subroto Roy was a megalomaniac, giving himself the title of Sahara Shri and almost building up this kind of like a cult with the Sahara Pranam and all of that other like that. He, in my view, was the worst of the lot, directly defrauding the most marginalized, people who don't have access to organized banking. Our institutions and governments are also at fault, but he operated exactly like a classic pyramid scheme, like a Ponzi scheme. It was a fraud from the very beginning. Sahara and Subroto Roy exploited the personal trust and faith of individuals, asking them to go and make more members, and that's how they will make money, using their personal equity and naivety to defraud their own friends and relatives. A special kind of scorn is reserved for a person like this. There was this Sahara executive called Vivek Kumar. He was almost blind in his adulation of this fraudster. When he was speaking, I almost felt like hitting him on the head with something and say, wake up. I mean, the reality is there for everyone to see, but it seems he is still blind.
Oh, it instills such a great sense of pride in me.
While all of this was going on, I was just in my mind wondering about how similar Vijay Mallya and Subroto Roy were in their megalomania when the part came up with both of them together. So there was this scene of the Force India Formula 1 car with the Sahara logo on it. I had a bit of a chuckle when I saw them together. I'm sure they must have shared a tip or two about how to perpetrate such a big fraud. Otherwise, it would have been a wasted opportunity for them. It was also funny seeing a younger, more sedate Arnab Goswami.
My next guest is Sahara boss Subroto Roy.
Looking back at it, he looks so sensible and such an articulate anchor compared to the raging lunatic he has become now. To top it all, he accused Subroto Roy of using nationalism to obfuscate the issue at hand. Maybe after seeing how successful Subroto Roy was, Arnab took some lessons from him, and that has contributed to what he has become now.
I challenge the whole world that we have not done anything wrong.
Unlike most people in his position with the kind of wealth that is still at his disposal, people tend to escape laws and justice, but hopefully that hope for Subroto Roy is gone. After watching these 3 episodes, I think Ramalinga Raju's fraud was probably the worst of the lot. He committed this in an industry which was supposed to signal the dawn of a new India. Nearly world class, using our abundantly available manpower and the analytical and technical skills of a caliber and scale that few countries can match. The whole series is a frightening window into the crony capitalism that has become all pervasive now. Genuine entrepreneurs suffer while frauds like these take our money and become billionaires. Now, in all of this, more than these fraudsters, it's the regulatory and legal environment that is to blame. The financial institutions did not do their job. The regulators and auditors like PwC, they colluded to perpetrate these frauds. The CBI and ED failed to go after them, and even after being convicted, the likes of Ramalinga Raju got out on a bail of 10 lakh rupees. PwC was banned for only 2 years from auditing listed companies. That is it. That is the extent of the punishment that was meted out to them. The series technically is pretty average, but it shines a light on some of the biggest criminals whose acts directly affect the average citizen. It is a must-watch for everyone who idolizes these kind of fraudsters and thinks that these are world-class businessmen. They are anything but. Now, let's hope that there is a second season coming. One thing I can be sure of is that Netflix will not fall short of frauds for that kind of a series. It can be many episodes long. Let me know if you have seen the series, what did you think about it, and what are your nominations for people who should be included in the second season for this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends and family. Until next time, bye-bye. Okay, so you are one of the few who have reached the end of the video. You would have seen that the last 3 videos, so the Bandish Bandits review, the Guinea Veg Sunny review, and this video, I've used a slightly different setup for all these 3 videos. What I want from you is if you can watch these 3 videos and tell me which setup works best. I'm talking about the audio and the video quality of these videos. If you prefer the quality in one of these, do write it down in the comments, and that'll help me shoot my next videos using that setup so that I can improve the quality of my videos. If all of them are pretty same, then I will most likely stick with this new setup because this makes it easy for me to switch between work and making videos, and hopefully with that I can churn out more videos at a better frequency than I have done over the last few months. Thank you very much for watching this special message, and I look forward to your views and your suggestions.